Hello, dear followers, and welcome back to Turkish series stars. All the details are in this video, so before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, tap the bell icon, and give this video a like, because tonight's story is one that left the entire studio in silence and audiences at home holding their breath. Beloved actor Barış Arduç sat down on a primetime talk show and, while sharing a tender memory he lived with his partner, the radiant Elsen Sangu, he simply could not hold back his tears. What poured from his heart touched not only the people watching in the studio, but anyone who has ever loved someone so much that the fear of losing them changes the shape of your life. It began with a simple, piercing question from the host: what was the most touching moment of your life? The cameras held close on Barış's face. He didn't answer right away. He lowered his gaze, took a slow breath, and for a brief second it seemed like the lights, the audience, the red blinking camera all disappeared. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled in a way we rarely see from him. Seeing Elsen in the hospital that day was the hardest moment of my life, he said. When she opened her eyes, she took my hand and whispered, "Everything will be okay," but everything inside me knew nothing felt okay. In a tone both steady and shaking, he shared that years earlier, long before anyone imagined they might face such a storm, Elsen had battled a serious health scare she chose to keep private, away from the tabloids and noise. She didn't want to be pitied. She wanted to work, to smile, to be herself. And he stayed by her side, through the antiseptic hallways, the gray mornings, and the quiet hours that seem endless when time is measured by heartbeat monitors and the creak of a corridor door. She looked so strong for everyone else, he continued, but at night, when the world went quiet, I could hear her crying softly. It shattered me. That was the moment I realized how much I loved her, how much I would give up just to keep her safe. The studio fell into a hush. Even the host, known for staying composed, felt his own throat tighten. The crew grew still. You could feel it, a weight of truth, a private memory laid bare for the world. And then Barış added the line that took the audience from silence to raw emotion. That morning, she looked at me and asked, "Can you love me like this? Not just when I'm on a poster, not just when I'm on a set and laughing, but like this." And I knew then that I loved her not just for her beauty and her fire, but for her fears, her fragility, her courage, every version of her. In that moment, you could almost see what it cost him to say it. The host reached over with a glass of water he hardly touched. A tissue appeared, hardly needed because he wasn't hiding the tears. There was an intimacy in that studio that felt unfamiliar to television, like someone had opened a window and let the night air in. The audience held themselves as if not to break the spell, and for a few seconds, Barış simply breathed, swallowed, and looked out as if searching for the one face that would make the room make sense. And when the episode aired, the effect was immediate. Fans flooded social media with words of comfort and admiration. People wrote that this is what love looks like when the cameras stop and the scripts are put away. That's real love, read one message after another. Barış's tears touched our hearts, another post said, and showed just how lucky Elsen is, and how lucky he is too. Support flowed in not as gossip, but as gratitude, a chorus of people recalling the moments that taught them what devotion means when the answers are uncertain and the night is long. The story didn't end when the lights went down. After the broadcast, Elsen, who has always guarded her private life with quiet grace, broke her silence with a gesture so simple and so eloquent it barely needed words. On her account, she shared a short clip of that emotional moment. No grand speech. Just a caption, "With you, everything is right." The video racked up millions of likes within hours, the comments an outpouring of hearts, memories of their on-screen spark, and respect for the off-screen truth they had finally allowed the world to see. It wasn't a spectacle. It was a vow made public by two people who never asked for sympathy, only understanding. Behind the cameras, there was another scene, one the audience didn't witness live, but which crew members quietly shared later. Long after the taping ended and the staff began packing up cables and rolling back lights, Barış remained in the half-lit studio. The seats were empty. The applause was a memory. He stood for a while, then sat, then stood again, as if caught between leaving and staying in the only room where he'd spoken those words out loud. In his hand, according to one person present, was a photo of Elsen that he glanced at and then lowered with a tenderness that said everything he couldn't say on camera. For those who worked that night, it felt like the first time he had put his deepest feelings into words without armor, without turning the confession into a performance. Friends close to the couple echoed the sentiment. One confidant of Elsen said she still remembers those days with tears in her eyes, not because the memory is only pain, but because it carries the strange light that follows survival. She's grateful for every moment he stayed, the friend shared, every late-night coffee he finished cold, every laugh he forced when she needed to hear a laugh instead of a rainstorm. And it's that gratitude, quiet, unflaunted, that lingers in the rooms they share and the work they love. For years, Barış and Elsen have kept their off-screen life low-key, refusing to turn their relationship into a brand. They choose privacy over promotion, reality over rumor. Perhaps that is why this confession resonated. It felt unguarded, but never careless. It didn't invite speculation, it invited compassion. And after the episode aired, something in their public presence shifted the way a new season changes the light. The very next night, photographers captured them hand in hand along the Bosphorus, the water laid out like a mirror to the city's sleepless windows. There was no rush to hide, no performative pose. Just two people walking, leaning into one another against the breeze, as if the sidewalk beneath them knew the weight it carried. Those photos spread almost instantly, reminding everyone why this pair captured hearts in the first place. The chemistry fans adored on screen, the laughter that slipped between them during interviews, the glances that seemed to say more than words, all of it now blended with a new dimension, resilience. Not the kind of resilience that appears in headlines, but the ordinary courage to stay when leaving would be easier, to listen when silence might be safer, to hold someone's hand and mean it when the night gets complicated. What made Barış's confession so powerful was that it wasn't about perfection. It wasn't designed to be tidy. He didn't say everything was beautiful, he said it was hard, and messy, and terrifying, and worth it. He didn't frame her as an ideal, he loved her as a person. And in doing so, he reframed the story we so often tell about famous couples. It isn't just about the glow of premieres or the music of applause. It can be about a hospital corridor at dawn, the machine hum you try to forget, the nurse who smiles and says take care, and a question no one can ever answer for you: can you love me like this? Viewers who watched the broadcast reported that even the host, who had initially asked the question with a professional smile, leaned back in his chair and let the silence speak. He had no follow-up ready that didn't feel small in the face of the memory. Instead, he thanked Barış for his courage and turned to the camera with a sincerity that had little to do with ratings. The segment ended without music. It faded on the image of a man who had told the truth and found himself lighter for it, even as his eyes stayed wet. Industry colleagues praised the moment, too. Some said privately they had rarely seen him so exposed. Others noted how consistent it was with the way he and Elsen moved through their careers, deliberate, thoughtful, and allergic to theatrics for theatrics' sake. Notably, people close to the production stressed that no medical details were discussed, and none would be. The point wasn't to dissect an illness. It was to show what it looks like when love is asked to do the brave thing, and it says yes. By the end of the night, clips of the interview circulated with captions marveling at how a pair so admired for their elegance could also model such bare, human truth. It felt like a mirror held up to every relationship that has weathered a storm behind closed doors, the kind of storm that doesn't become a headline but changes you just the same. If you've ever waited in the dark for someone to wake up and say it's okay, a viewer wrote, you understand what he meant. Sometime after midnight, lights in the city went out one by one, but the comments kept arriving. People recalled their first time seeing Barış and Elsen together on screen, how their timing made even the simplest lines sing. They wrote about the interviews where a single shared smile felt like a secret handshake. And then they wrote about last night, when the secret wasn't a smile but the admission that love is work, and vulnerability, and the courage to let someone see you when you're scared of being seen. The morning after, the conversation had shifted. It was less about shock and more about gratitude. Gratitude that a love story so often projected onto billboards could still belong to the people living it. Gratitude that fame had not polished away their edges. Gratitude that in a world where appearances are currency, they chose honesty. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a stunt. It was a reminder that celebrity does not erase humanity. At its best, it can illuminate it. By evening, more images surfaced from their walk by the water. They paused near a railing, heads close, the city a-glitter behind them. The moment looked ordinary and, for that reason, rare. They were not giving a show, they were finishing a conversation that had begun in public and would end, as it should, in private. Sources close to them said they felt relieved after the broadcast, as if naming a fear had robbed it of some of its power. According to those same voices, they turned off their phones early, made tea, and let the quiet do what quiet does when you trust it. For many, the lasting image is not even the tears. It's the question, can you love me like this? It lingers because it's the question we all carry when the parts of us we usually hide come forward and ask to be held. The answer, last night, was yes. Not just once, or in front of a camera, but yes in the long days and the small hours, yes in the paperwork and the waiting rooms, yes at the window when the city keeps moving and you feel still. That's what people felt when the clip ended, when the comments went quiet for a moment, when they turned off their screens and stared at the ceiling. Not spectacle. Recognition. And that, perhaps, is why this story will be told again, not as gossip, but as a guide. The confession was never just about love in the glossy sense. It revealed something deeper, the way support can be a shelter, the way trust can be a language, the way simple human kindness can be an anchor when the tide pulls strange. In the end, it wasn't the pain that defined them, but the choice to meet it together. That is what stayed when the credits rolled, when the lights dimmed, when the city slept and the river kept its secrets. You're watching Turkish series Stars, where we don't just chase the noise, we listen for the truth inside it. And last night, when Arduç shared the most touching moment of his life and said he loved every shade of the woman beside him, the world fell silent long enough to hear it.